I used to read a lot of folklore fairy tales. Probably all of you have, right? And you have an adventure, and there's the prince and the princess and the dragons and the dwarves and the magic spells and the magic potions and the battles, and you go on a journey and you save the princess and you get the prize and you fight the evil dragon or wizard, and then you come home back to the palace and you get all the gifts, and then you marry the princess and you have like 24 children and you live happily ever after. But what's the deal with this lived happily ever after? This is, by the way, the source of the Hollywood endings. They leave you with a stupid smile. Oh, so it all turns out okay. Oh, it's so good. But what happens afterwards, people? You got the princess, you got the treasure, you got a big palace with like 1,000 rooms. 1,000 rooms and 1,003 bathrooms for the guests. All en suite, of course. And, you have everything you want. And then you have like 12 children or 24. And you got a whole country. And what? You just stay and play video games? What happens then? The story ends. So this bullshit Hollywood ending, which originally came from folklore, children's tales, lived happily ever after. What does it even mean, lived happily ever after? There is no such thing as lived happily ever after. You get bored. You get fucking bored. So what, now you stay in the palace? We can't do that. We need to write a new story. And most people, unfortunately, they want to live the Hollywood dream and they end up living in the fucking nightmare, which they proudly call, this is my life. And then they wonder why they suffer. Because one story ended and they refuse to admit that it did. They still live in this fantasy of living happily ever after. So, there is a point, there are many points in our lives when we feel that one story has ended and we can either choose to live happily ever after, which doesn't really exist, or we can surrender to the flow and move on. Ride the next wave, to the next narrative, to the next story. Just keep going. Okay? And this living happily ever after is a recipe for disaster, is a recipe for depression, is a recipe for boredom, is the foundation of complacency, laziness, taking things for granted, entitlement. All the ills of the world can be summarized by the stupid mindfuck of the Hollywood ending and the fairy tales. And they lived happily ever after. Bruce Willis comes and saves the day. He gets the girl. What next? The end. Credits. Oh, I want this. I want to be like Bruce Willis, save the girl. I want to be hero, yes? What happens next? What if the girl's a psychopath? What if you're a psychopath? Oh, you saved me, now you owe me money. Give me money. Why you saved me? Oh, I wanted to die. Yeah, but I saved you. No, I wanted to die. Why didn't you let me die? Now I make you suffer. I wanted to die. No good deed goes unpunished. Yes. Live happily ever after. Nonsense. Do you get what I'm saying? Can you see the mind fuck in this whole narrative? It's like in the Middle Ages, the lords, the feudal lords, they have those peasants in the village who grew all the food for them. They were like they're not slaves, but, servants, and they practically worked to feed the nobility. And the nobility, the so-called nobility, the last thing they want is for the villager to go out, leave the village, and find out new stories. So that's why they started to create other narratives. Like, if you go beyond the hill, there's a forest, and there will be dragons who spit fire, and monsters who skin you alive, and bad wizards who drink your blood, and they cut you and you hang you upside down from a tree, and they drain you, and then they take your children and sacrifice them to Satan. All this if you cross over the hill into the forest and leave the village. And this narrative, you repeat it often enough that even the mothers of the children in the village are telling those stories to the children. And what happens? People never leave the fucking village. You just stay in the fucking village. You just stay and tell the same scary stories to your children. And the nobility don't even have to work anymore because people are doing their own indoctrination just fine. Our parents teach us the scary stories of our own limitations. Well, fuck those narratives. They're dead ends. Just like the one I drew first. Going nowhere. This wall between us in the village and the new adventure, this wall is also a narrative. And being a narrative, what is it made of? What's it made of? Come on. It's a nothing. Like Neo in the Matrix. There is no spoon. People say, I'm standing at a fork in the road right now. Well, there's no spoon, there's no fork. The choice is clear. You don't have a choice. You just have to go with the story. If you choose wrong, you suffer. So there really is no choice. There's one way, and that's like beyond the wall. The wall of your self-imposed limitation. The wall is also a narrative that's standing in the way of your narrative. So can you see how narratives and stories are sometimes designed to program us into not writing our own? And what am I getting to right now is that at this point in our culture, civilization, humanity, whatever, we mostly live by narratives that have been inserted into our minds, and we've been made to believe that these are our own narratives. A simple way to call it is indoctrination. We think we're free because we have this narrative that tells us that we're free. We think we're individuals because we've been taught this narrative that tells us the story that we're individuals. We know we're safe because we have this narrative that tells us if we cross the forest, we're not safe. But we're safe because we drive 70. No accidents happen if you drive 70. Not at all. Accidents only happen if you drive 71 or more. So we're living, and from birth, our heads are getting filled, like plugged into this mainframe, and we're being fed narratives. But nobody ever teaches us to write our own. And our own narratives may suck at the beginning, okay? Not all of us are great writers, but at least it's our own shit, okay? We don't subscribe to narratives that somebody else wrote for us. And there are some pretty damn good writers out there. You can call them Hollywood screenwriters, you can call them politicians, you can call them all the people who do NLP and they, do some mindfuck on you. Salesmen, salespeople, commercials, it's all narratives. Politicians, no, I will save the nation. No, I will save the nation. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. It's the same story. We buy into those external narratives, and like Toto said, I'm paraphrasing what he said, we perceive them as some sort of law. We perceive them as part of our own narrative. All the stuff that's been said to us, all the stuff that we've been taught that it's true. All this indoctrination, it becomes part of our identity. It's no longer even something that we believe in. It's no longer something that we accept. Okay, I can agree with that. No, it's even worse. It becomes part of our own narrative. We cannot tell the difference anymore between the advertisement that we've been indoctrinated with and our true story that we desperately want to write, but have forgotten how. And we have forgotten how to write and how to speak because we have forgotten how to see and how to listen and how to discern. And this course, this workshop, this seminar, whatever you want to call it, this event, this cosmic joke, I love the term, by the way. Thank you, Milko. This cosmic joke of an event will be a gathering for us to remember, to take off our blindfolds and our glasses, and to start to see and to start to listen. Beyond projections, beyond advertisements, beyond the walls of illusion, beyond the movie screen, beyond the happy ending, beyond the happily ever after, beyond the bullshit that we're being fed all the time, non-stop, there is a soft voice calling to us, almost like a whisper. And there's a small light, like a brief candle. And it calls to us, and it wants to be seen, and it wants to be heard. But we forgot to see and we forgot to listen. And in our current human condition, regardless if we call ourselves shamans or wizards or computer programmers or taxi drivers, it doesn't matter. We desperately need to remember how to see again, how to hear again. We have become numb, comfortably numb. And this event will hopefully trigger in us the memory, the very basic longing and desire to hear again, to see again, to see what's behind the illusion, to see what's behind the wall. And hopefully to write our own stories in the process. Not something that's been sold to us, not something that's been advertised to us, not something that we've been programmed with. To create our new life story, life stories. Something that is harmonious, something that is not conflicting, something that does not cause suffering, something that does not impose limitations. Like in the album, The Wall, it ends with tear down the wall. Tear down the wall. The wall of narratives, the wall that tells us that if we leave the village, there will be dragons who spit fire and wizards who will drink our blood. Tear down the wall. It's a story. It's a narrative. There is no wall. There is no spoon. There is no fork. There is no wall. There are no dragons. It's a story that tries to get in the way of our own. And once we see it for what it is, we can just clear the space, embrace the silence, stop projecting, shut down our internal perpetual dialogue, and start to see and start to listen. And most people have forgotten how to do that. Fortunately, a few of us still remember. And my hope is that during this event that we're sharing here, we'll gradually start to remember how to listen and how to see. Beyond these walls of illusions that have been created for us to keep us trapped in a narrative that is not even our own. So, if there's any way to introduce the concept of shamanism, I think this is it. The last few hours. It's not about ritual, it's not about talking to birds, it's about remembering how to finally see and listen again. And then to write our own story, if we choose to.